On to the scripture now. So in the last, I'm going to kind of go with the same idea that we went off the last time. We were addressing sacred cows, issues of doctrine that leads people and gets people stuck in unbelief. All right, and this is a really big one that is often taught. It's almost always taught on this scripture, and I think we miss it here. So the question would be this: Didn't Jesus have to put the family out to raise the dead girl? And should we put the family out? And I hear this taught all the time, and it's so just not true. So let's just go to the scripture. We're going to see what the scripture really says about it, and then I'm going to talk about why this is actually really important. Because here's the thing: if you feel like you need to create an environment where there's no unbelievers in it, first off, that's not really going to happen. That's not that practical, right? Second off, if there's unbelievers around you and you think unbelievers are going to stop your prayer from working, you're going to be in a lot of unbelief yourself. So now you've just put yourself in unbelief because of your doctrine. You shouldn't have doctrine that should make any hindrance for you. Okay? Your doctrine should be freeing and empowering. And it should count in the absolute true power of God that nothing can stop. And if you think that Jesus had to put out unbelievers to raise somebody from the dead, that's just wrong. Think about Lazarus. They were crying and mourning at Lazarus' funeral. They said, he's been dead for 3 days. He stinks by now, and he still raised him up. So there's a lot of really awesome gems in this scripture that's really going to inspire our faith. And when we get down to it, we're going to see it's actually, there's a lot more really, really empowering things in this scripture without thinking of, this teaching that I think really doesn't belong here. And the scripture really doesn't give the reason why he puts them out. But I think there's a lot of things in the scripture that we can rely on as to the reason why he put these people out. That doesn't include the fact that they were in unbelief and he couldn't do this because of their unbelief, right? So we're going to do Luke's testimony of this, all right? And I clipped around a couple passages, and I also insert in here a little bit from Matthew in the middle. So it's going to be Luke, and we're going to address a little bit of a parallel passage because the way it's written actually gives a really good reason of why something happens here. So Luke 8, when Jesus returned, the multitude welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And that's when, so he was healing a multitude, right? And they're all touching him. And then the woman with the bleeding issue is healed by touching Jesus, okay? That's kind of the context of, so he's going to Jairus' house, and on the way, the woman with the bleeding issue touches him, and he's in the middle of a crowd, right? So we need to know, going to the house, he's in a crowd. Very important, okay? Because it's a setup. So while he still spoke, one of the rulers of the synagogue came to the house, saying to him, your daughter is dead, don't trouble the teacher. So they're in this crowd. He leaves the crowd, and someone says, don't bother coming, she died. You didn't make it in time, Jesus. It's too late. You didn't make it to heal her in time, right? So it sounds really sad, but Jesus, hearing it, answered him, don't be afraid, only believe, and she will be healed. Right? So he's not even acknowledging that she's dead. She didn't say she'd be raised. He said, she'll be healed. Not raised, healed. He doesn't even acknowledge the fact that she's dead. Notice that, because that key comes up again. When he came to the house, he didn't allow anyone to enter in except, all right, he's in a crowd of people. He doesn't let them in the house. Okay? Nobody come in. Okay? So that's gonna come back up at the end. All right. Notice what he's doing. He's not allowing anyone except Peter, John, James, and the father and mother. Okay. So there's 5 people with him. So not everyone was put out. I mean, there's 5 people with him: 3 disciples and the parents of the girl. All right. All were weeping and mourning for her, but he said, "Don't weep. She isn't dead, but sleeping." So again, she's not dead. Okay. He says she'll be healed, and she's not dead. We're snipping in a little bit of the parallel passage, Matthew. When Jesus came into the official's house and saw the flute players in the crowd in noisy disorder, he said, leave, for the girl is not dead but asleep. So notice this, flute players and noisy crowd, okay? The Jews had paid mourners in their funerals. They'd pay people to come to their funerals if they had enough money. This guy had money, okay? He's a synagogue official. So it's possible that these flute players, obviously the flute players are paid, right? And the noisy crowd was possibly paid mourners. They made their funerals a big thing, It's a big to-do, and that's just part of their ancient culture. So there's possibly some of those people there. But this is what he says: leave, for the girl is not dead, but is asleep. So again, he says she's not dead. He just doesn't acknowledge it. He does the same thing with Lazarus. On the way to the Lazarus's house, he tells his disciples, he's not dead, he's asleep, right? And then he eventually has to explain to him, he's saying that he is dead when he says asleep, right? But it's like he's priming his faith or something, or like he's not acknowledging the fact that this is going to end in death. You know, and it's like he's priming the situation with his words. You know, like, this is how it's going to be. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be like this. And he's saying how it's going to turn out in faith, right? Knowing that God's going to make it turn out this way. So he's speaking what he expects to come out, right? But look, this word for, see that? For. That's the Greek word gar. You could also say this word means because, all right? Gar is because or for. So here's the reason right here. Leave because she's not dead. So you've got a funeral going on, right? Jesus walks into the funeral and says, guys, they're not dead. What are y'all doing here? Leave. She's alive. She's not dead. She's just sleeping. So the reason he puts them out of the house is for or because the girl's not dead. Not because of their unbelief. Not because he had to put them out because they were unbelieving, but because she wasn't dead. That's why he put them out. Because this is a funeral. What are these paid mourners and these flute players doing here if the girl's not dead? Why is this funeral going on? Right. She's not even dead. She's just asleep. Why are you having a funeral for a sleeping girl? See? It's a huge statement of faith that he's making. It's a statement of faith.
Huge.
So then they began laughing at him, right? And then we're going back to Luke now. They were ridiculing him, knowing that she was dead. But he put them all outside, and taking her by the hand, he called, saying, "Child, arise." Her spirit returned, and she rose up immediately. He commanded that something be given to her to eat. All right, that happens a lot when they raise people from the dead. They give them something to eat. I don't know why. It doesn't really ever say why.
They haven't eaten it for a while, I guess, huh?
Her parents were amazed, but he commanded them to tell no one what had been done. All right, so he tried to keep this a secret. And there's a few reasons why he keeps it a secret. One is to avoid enemies, okay? Avoid people that are he doesn't want always so much attention to him. In Mark chapter 1, he tells a guy to keep it secret, and the guy doesn't keep it a secret. And what happens is he goes and blabs it to the city flocks to him, and he can't even enter the city and navigate it. So he ends up having to preach in the desert because he couldn't get into the city. It was a blind man, yeah. So usually when he's trying to keep it a secret, it's to avoid attention, you know. Yeah. And obviously this isn't supposed to be a big sign for people if he wants it to be, you know, if he wants it to be a secret. This isn't a sign that he's the Messiah. This is just he's doing a favor for a guy because it was the right thing to do, because a little girl dying is obviously horrible. That's right. It's out of compassion. So remember this. Tell no one. Remember when he gets to the house, he leaves this crowd of people. That woman with the issue of bleeding gets healed. He's in a crowd. Everyone's pressing in on him. His disciples say, "What do you mean, who touched you?" They're pressing in on you. There's a whole crowd. Yeah. He leaves them outside the door. Okay? He doesn't want, and he tells everyone to leave. Because, hey guys, the funeral's over. It's not even a funeral. Haha. Everyone's just laughing at him.
That's it, right?
Right? So he shows up. He doesn't let anyone in. Guys, leave. It's not a funeral. She's not even dead. All right, he's trying to cover it up. It's a big cover up. He's trying to cover up the fact that he raised this girl from the dead. You know, he doesn't let anyone in. Yeah. He sends them out, says she's not dead, and he says, keep it a secret. So it's just he's doing the right thing in compassion, trying to cover it up, trying not to draw too much attention to it. And it has nothing to do with the unbelief of, you know, the people that he had to send them out. So in my opinion, we need to welcome unbelievers into the healing. Hey everybody, watch what I'm about to do. I'm about to pray for this person, and God's going to heal them. Their pain's going to leave, or their leg's going to grow out. Like, hey everyone, come watch this. Come look at this. That's what you want to do. It's evangelism.
No. There were, because if you go to Luke 8:40, it says that he was invited to Jairus' house, leader of the synagogue. But then on the way there, someone comes and tells Jairus, "Don't bother to have him come." Now that person that came to tell him, "Don't bother to have him come," that she's already dead, was maybe trying to save Jairus the embarrassment of having a prophet come to his house who was considered maybe a heretic to some in that synagogue that he was a leader in. So he was trying to spare him the embarrassment of having him go there and not have some. But then Jesus talks him into it right after that.
It's true.
He
That's a good point.
Says no. He's like, she's just asleep.
He rekindles the faith.
He says, no, don't listen to him. Okay, he's coming to tell you a lie. He goes, she's really asleep. Let's go. You know, let me enter your house. You know, so
That's a good point.
and he's like, don't worry about, this is not going to be an embarrassment. She's still alive. This is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, you get into it deep there because it's the dialogue that, I mean, if Jesus didn't say that, the situation might have been over.
Right.
You know, it might have never happened. So yeah, he really rekindled the faith and kept the confidence that this was going to happen. And that's a good point.